Hello and welcome to that career show that all of you are probably watching or being forced to watch by your parents because hey, bade hoke kuch to banna hai. But today we are actually at a nice, interesting apparel, well, not store, but an apparel house called Fable Street. And what's really interesting about it is that they cater to a need that isn't catered to that much: corporate women's wear. So let's go interview their founder and CEO.
Hi, I'm Ayushi. I'm the founder and CEO of Fable Street.
Hi Ayushi, welcome to HOPStart. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to let us interview you. So let's just start with what is Fable Street?
So Fable Street is a premium workwear brand. We set up Fable Street to give style, comfort and fit in one garment to people in India. So that's what Fable Street broadly is about. There are not many brands which offer comfortable and well-fitted clothing, and that's why we set up Fable Street 3 years ago. And yeah, so that's primarily it. What we specialize is in the concept of tailored fits. You give us 3 body measurements online and we can give you a very good fit.
Okay, that's interesting. So how did you get yourself into Fable Street? Do you always have a background in apparel, or is this something you stumbled upon?
No, I'm actually an ex-consultant and ex-MBA from Calcutta.
Okay.
So I actually entered this area of apparel primarily because I was a consumer and I never found good clothing for myself. And then that eventually translated into need of many women and therefore a potential business opportunity.
Okay.
So based on my need and the business opportunity, made a lot of sense to do something in this sphere, so entered apparel.
Actually, that's really interesting because I mean, like you said rightly so, that workwear for women isn't something that is specialized by a lot of companies. So do your companies do anything special? Like, for example, pockets amongst
Yes.
clothes is a huge issue for women, and is it something that you tackle?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are completely, first of all, a customer need backward brand. So
Okay.
before even when we started Fable Street, the idea was to figure out what customers wanted, and we came up with a bunch of things. Number one is, as you rightly said, a lot of functional things. Pockets which can actually hold phones.
Yeah.
Not just fake
not
pockets.
Just cosmetic pockets.
Yes,
fake
not just fake
pockets,
pockets, but pockets which can actually hold the phones.
Yeah.
Then there are issues on the dress length. India is a slightly conservative environment, so people don't want dress lengths in office which are above knees. Having sleeves on all the garments. Finally, it's also about, so this is about functional stuff and even more detailed stuff like easy to wear, so you want zippers here instead of back, quite a bit of stuff. So that's number one. The second is the fits. Unfortunately, all the brands in India are international brands and they don't tailor the measurements for Indian body shapes and sizes. So that is the second area which we needed to work on. So we're completely customer need backward.
Okay, that's interesting. But I'd like to, before we get into, let's say, Fable Street and the specifications of your brand, I want to know more about, the kind of troubles and tribulations you felt, moving from a consulting background into an apparel business.
Very interesting question. And been asked this quite a lot. So I think there were some personal learnings and there were some industry learnings for me. The first one I would say is, in terms of personal learnings, I'd consistently been a consultant where you would be guiding others on how to think about business,
Okay.
but you wouldn't be the person who has
Actually doing
executed it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that was my own personal journey over last 3 years. So I pretty much used to sit in an apparel factory for 6 months, understood how the garments are made, understood fabrics, understood functional details, worked with this, got the first few garments done myself. So that was my own personal journey, and then eventually we set up Fable Street. So that was what I went through. And in terms of industry learnings, I would say the apparel industry is fairly not advanced.
Okay.
So it lacks talent, it lacks the aspiration of what it can be in India, and that is what I then intended to bring to it. For me, Fable Street is a massive business opportunity to build a global brand coming out of India, and that mindset is what the industry lacks, and enabled by talent is how we build that. So those are the two things.
So would you say that that's the biggest pain point of this industry, in terms of they just don't see things on an international scale, or they then struggle, or maybe they do and they struggle then to scale it from a domestic to an international? space?
So the
I
quick
mean, stuff
background.
you've seen,
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
course.
So
Yeah,
I think the
yeah.
biggest background for you to understand is India is the supply chain for every global apparel brand. So the pain point can't be supply,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
name the biggest global brands, whether it is Inditex, which is the Zara group, or Gap or Uniqlo, right? They all source from India. So it's actually not the supply chain which is the core issue. Supply chain is only a core issue when you're starting the business, like learning the tricks and trade. So it is, I would say, the businesses over in India are mostly self-sufficient.
Okay.
And very few brands have cropped up within India lately. So it is a little bit about having the vision and then executing it through and through. That's how I would say is the miss in the industry.
So most entrepreneurs have this decision to make when they're coming up with a product or any kind of business. Do they enter a crowded space, which is, and therefore that innovation is tested the most, so how can they set themselves apart? Or in your case where you said that you felt that there's a need in the market that isn't being met to its highest standard. However, there still exist brands that do like corporate wear for women. So what makes your brand different?
So I think, so number one is that there is a need which most of the brands haven't solved for. So you have a lot of Indian wear brands which are actually the offshoot of menswear brands trying to do women's wear.
Okay, fair enough, yeah.
So the constant need is women love their soft and flowy blouses, men love stiff collared shirts. So if you're trying to do the menswear for women's wear, that doesn't work. So there's a need which is basically being unmet, and most of the brands within India were not satisfying it. And second aspect I would say is a lot of organizational challenge, because it's menswear brand trying to enter the women's wear space. So for them, they basically think of women's wear as menswear. And I think for a new startup to be able to navigate that early on is very easy to do. So those were the two reasons how I pushed myself to say, let's make a dent here.
That makes sense, because in terms of the way that apparel wear, or at least the apparel industry has worked in India so far, at least to my knowledge, it has been a bit of a boys' club. And so would you like to maybe enlighten me on what it was like, as a woman entrepreneur getting into a kind of a male-dominated industry in apparel?
So I actually would say that apparel is not fully a boys' club. Like there are so many women designers, women boutiques, and everything around it. So I would say in apparel, from the back end or supply side, I think there are equal number of men and women.
Okay.
Just that women most of the times haven't taken their product and category way too
Yeah,
far
that's
in
what I
terms
meant,
of
like,
the execution of it. So very few women have been able to build the brands and thought about taking them to scale, whereas mostly men have at least taken that plunge. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the core difference, I would say. So my thoughts on it being men's is not, the answer is that it's actually not a menswear, it's women and men together. And you just need to have the mindset and the vision to execute it. Hopefully you'll build a good one.
Okay, all right. So we'll be back after a short break, and we're going to talk about more specifically, if let's say I want to order from Fable Street, how to do it.
2, 1.
Welcome back to HOPStart, and today we're at Fable Street and talking to its founder and CEO, Ayushi. So Ayushi, let's first just get things out of the way. If I want to order something from Fable Street, do I do it at a retail store or do I go online?
You go to www.fablestreet.com
Okay.
and choose what you like, register, log in, put your size and move in. We also have this concept of tailored fits where you can put in your measurements, which you can take on your own, just 3 measurements only, and enter them, and then within a week you get tailored fits delivered at your doorstep.
Okay, that's really interesting. So has it always been like this customized fit that you've run, or is it something that you've recently started?
No, we always wanted to start with this concept. We're solving for fits, right?
Yeah,
so I told
like
you,
you
right?
said.
So when we're solving for fits, we basically realized that there are a lot of people who will fit into standard small, medium, large, extra large.
Yeah.
But there are some people who would be in between sizes or would need different sizing, post-pregnancy belly, specific body shapes. India is so many different countries in itself, So therefore we always wanted to do tailored fits. At the same time, we also wanted to ensure that it is hassle-free. So we only needed to ensure we get 2 to 3 measurements and we can then run with it. So that's how we thought about
So
it.
actually, right now we're standing in part of your production
Yes.
line. I just wanted to ask you because customization is something that is a bit hard on production because you can't mass produce. So how do you get around that then essentially?
So we do customization at 2 levels.
Okay.
We basically, one of the reasons we manage customization is we go with the concept of my style, your fit. So
Okay.
what it means is I am not giving you the opportunity to choose
design your
what
clothes.
fabric,
Yeah.
what color, what neck and everything. And that makes sense when it comes to women's wear because they actually need to see what they're going to get. So that is something that we eliminate. So anyhow, we have reduced the complexity therein.
Yeah, yeah.
Then therefore finally the customization is all about sizes.
Sizes,
So at
so
the
that's
back
what it is,
end,
yeah.
if you see there, I think it's going to be hard, but there are patterns of all sizes. So we've
Okay.
kind of developed multiple size patterns against which we can cut various tailored fit sizes as well.
Okay.
So the customization comes in at the cutting stage and then it can go back to mass production or single piece production.
Okay, but I so like you said, you're a you exist in the e-retail space.
Yes.
But if you were ever to get into, let's say, proper retail, how would you do this customization of size in a like a brick and mortar store?
So I think there are a lot of stores which are now doing it. We basically want to plan about doing retail in a concept store manner. So we will
Okay.
still have centralized shipments and delivery.
Okay.
So that's how. So the customization will be managed at the back end the way it is managed.
Okay.
So not difficult.
Okay, and in terms of manufacturing, have you ever thought about like outsourcing your manufacturing to a bigger plant, or have you always thought that I want to do it in-house and something?
No, 100% outsourcing.
Yeah.
So basically, for the first few years, we actually have had manufacturing unit in-house. This is
Okay.
because when you're starting a business, you want to control the quality, the style, and
Of course,
everything.
yeah.
And quality doesn't come at low scale. So that is
Yeah.
the reason we needed to do it in-house. For the last couple of months, we have basically scaled up massively. So we are actually right now doing about 40 to 50% outsourced manufacturing
okay.
and remaining in-house. So this is about 50% of the space that you see over here.
Okay. And I would also like to ask you then, in terms of, so you say you have your own website, right?
Yes.
Can you give me maybe the pros and cons of, let's say, having your own website versus just being a label on Amazon or Flipkart or something like that?
Number one, like I think the advantage of having your own website is you get to tell your consumers who you are,
Yeah.
which people don't get to tell when it comes to being on Amazon and Myntra. Second is like especially this concept of tailored fits is pretty much difficult to execute on an Amazon or a Myntra because that
Yeah.
customization is not
Yeah.
available. So that is the primary reason. So you can genuinely build a brand and talk about yourself when you're on your own website, enabled with social media and a bunch of other places. So that's the advantage. The disadvantage is how do you get traffic on your website?
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
end up paying a lot of money to all these social media players to be
Yeah.
able to get that traffic, which from an Amazon or a Myntra point of view is much easier to do so. So I think that would be the biggest disadvantage of having your own website.
Okay.
Because eventually you need traffic which converts to sales. So
Okay.
yeah, so the cost ends up equating, but brand building does happen more on your own page.
Okay, because I mean, outside of this interview, I was talking to you about, what was the plan ever to go into main retail, like
Yes.
we spoke about. But in terms of, moving to a brick and mortar, what are the major challenges you see moving from e-retail to directly now a brick and mortar, whenever you do in a couple of years?
Yeah,
like you
so
said?
we intend to go offline and open up a brick and mortar store. I don't see any challenges. What we
Okay.
do need to do is we need to ensure a seamless online to offline engagement and conversion.
Yeah.
And that's what we intend to do. So eventually, if you order online, you can collect it in retail store, you meet someone in retail store, pick it up, it goes back and gets converted to your online order and everything. I think that's the biggest thing. We do need to do retail store because when it comes to apparel, we cannot run away from consumers wanting to touch, feel, experience it.
Try on.
So that's
like,
what
yeah,
the
yeah.
reason for retail is.
I guess you're right, because I mean, especially in the major metropolitan cities, which is where you're targeting. Do majority of your businesses come from, let's say, these metropolitan cities, because it's mostly corporate wear?
80%, yes. 80% is Delhi, Bombay,
Okay, wow.
Bangalore, and Calcutta and Hyderabad.
Okay, and since you've been doing this for the last 3-4 years, maybe what is the one thing you've learned about metropolitan cities and demand from there? I would like to know, like, if you have any story to share, if something that went horribly wrong that now definitely you won't make that mistake again, or the opposite, something that went incredibly right through luck and you're like, okay, now this is my new motto. Anything like that?
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I think overall all the geographies differ, so
Okay.
that is an important learning for us. Eventually, like since we are from Delhi, one of the interesting learning was Delhi has winter, so let's just do knitwear and sweaters.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we were happily like trying to figure out that there are barely any sales coming from non-Delhi, so can you liquidate everything in Delhi? So that was a learning that Delhi has genuine winters, Bombay,
Yeah.
Bangalore,
Don't really
and
have
but they have interesting winters that they want to wear darker colors
Yeah,
and
okay,
feel
okay.
winter.
Okay.
So you have to look at very different merchandise for different cities when you're offering them, and you have to do both. So that was an interesting learning that I had.
So that's really interesting. So I mean, since we spoke about digital marketing, then do you, let's say, have different kind of digital marketing campaigns that you would target for people in Bangalore versus Delhi?
So it is city-wise,
Okay.
age-wise, demographic-wise. It has to be fairly different. What
Yeah.
a 24-year-old wants is not what a 35-year-old wants. So there's an age difference and an age gap. Someone who's working in a media conglomerate versus someone who's working in a consulting like me who's looking for very fit tailored
Very,
suits.
very complex,
So the
yeah.
choices are different, and what you communicate to them is different.
Yeah.
One thing that works for all is having great fit. So that is one communication that goes all and works everywhere.
So since we're a career-oriented show, and a lot of people watch this show to get advice about what to do if they're in a situation like yours. So any advice to young people out there who want to start their own apparel clothing line?
So I would say about two specific ideas or things I would say. Number one is make sure you have the fundamentals and the business idea and the business plan right. It's not easy to execute it without a business plan and without being sure what you want to do. So that would be one advice I would say for the young kids. Second, I would say is that take the chance, take risks.
Yeah.
It's worth it. You will not regret later on in life.
Okay.
That's my mantra.
All right, thank you so much, Ayushi. This has been absolutely enlightening about the apparel
Great.
industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
2, 1.